Hello and welcome to another episode of Moonee Valley Voices, the Moonee Valley podcast where we shine a light on great people in our community doing wonderful things in business, networking, sports, you name it. And today I'm very happy to be sitting down with Luisa from Women in Moonee Valley, the founder of Women in Moonee Valley, a not-for-profit organisation dedicated to supporting, sharing and connecting local women. So Luisa, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
As we do with all our guests, let's just start by, unwrapping, your connection to Moonee Valley. So tell us a little bit about, how long you've sort of worked in the area or been, around the area for.
Yeah, so I've worked and lived in the area for over half my life now.
Yeah.
Mostly around the Airport West area.
Yeah.
Still live there and probably will forever.
Yeah.
So kids are really well embedded into the community now and couldn't imagine being anywhere else.
Anywhere else, yeah. Cool. And the Women in Moonee Valley Network, so that came around in 2020. Do you want to maybe share a little bit about how that, why you felt there was a need for that in the first place and how you went about setting that up?
Yep. So I guess during the COVID pandemic, so I was at home homeschooling with 4 kids and my partner was working full-time from home and so just trying to juggle that. And struggling a bit with it and thought, there's got to be something I can do, something else. And I think someone actually suggested I run for local council.
Yeah.
And I decided to put my hand up for that and ran a campaign. And what I found interesting during that campaign was how many women reached out to me with sort of questions or issues or concerns that they had. So, 99% of people contacting me were women.
Yeah.
A lot of women in financial distress, sometimes just looking for food. So there was like a bit of community rallying around that and just organising some food for people. It sort of grew from that. And then I wasn't successful in the campaigning for council, but through that met so many wonderful people, got a lot of really good connections with other councillors and council. Yeah. It really opened my eyes up to like community and just obviously, counsellor is a great and important role, but there's so many other things you could do. And so I continued that through starting up the Women in Moonee Valley network. Yeah,
nice. And we were talking a bit before we jumped on, but you run your own business as well. So maybe do you want to share a little bit about your business and what you do for your clients?
Yeah, so I run my business is mainly around helping organisations to improve processes and it's called Human Factors, so it's understanding people and processes and trying to create, work environments that are, beneficial for everyone, I guess.
Yeah.
So I just got a big passion for people and making people happy and comfortable, yeah.
Yeah. And the business itself, how was that sort of helped you getting the network up and running? Because I'm sure you work with a lot of different business owners and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So obviously being a business owner myself and I understand the challenges of, starting a business and having the confidence to get out there because a lot of it is about your self-belief and confidence, building networks, communicating with others, building good relationships. So through my business activities, I've built up that side of my personality quite strongly. So when it came to running Women in Moonee Valley, I started using a lot of those skills and was also very supportive of other businesses, especially those that were just starting out. That's a really big passion of mine is getting behind people that are just trying to get themselves going and spreading the word and connecting them up with other people as well if they're needing support.
So I guess what's the underlying mission or goal of Women in Moonee Valley from that respect? Because obviously there is a business aspect of it. You've got the directory and all that sort of stuff, but it's about much more than just business, isn't it? It's like a broader sort of mission there.
Yeah. I guess again through COVID there was that 5-kilometre radius where people were starting to look within their own community for resources or for people. It sort of did open my eyes to how rich the community was and how many resources there were. Someone who might have travelled, 40, 50 kilometres for a haircut might have decided to go down the road instead. Local coffee shops, restaurants, people started to uncover, oh, wow, this place is really lovely. It's just down the road from me. Yeah. So I found that people were starting to stick within the community. What that does, again, it creates that almost like that village type scenario. I've been to Italy to visit my family before, previously, and it's got that very small village vibe where you walk past someone and you know who they are. So I love the idea of people feeling like they're more part of a community and not so socially isolated. And once I think when you spread yourself out quite far, you do start to lose some of that intimacy within that community.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And Moonee Valley in particular, there's lots of pockets of Moonee Valley, isn't there? Like every corner has its own sort of character from, if you think of, Strathmore, like the Napier Street shops and like those sort of things. And then North Essendon's a bit more, I guess, bustling, with the big Coles and all that sort of stuff there as well.
Parkle Street.
Parkle Street. Yeah. So every sort of area has its own little flavour, I guess. So in sort of starting the network, and you mentioned that during your council campaign, lots of women sort of reached out to you, lots of a range of different issues, I guess. You mentioned, some were looking just for some help with the basics, the bare necessities of life. What sort of maybe unspoken or maybe lesser known issues are women in the Moonee Valley sort of facing based on what you've learned from your campaign and running the network for the last few years?
Yeah. So I think a big one is definitely around the social isolation. So I do get a lot of outreach programs and support workers contact me saying, I've got a mum who's got, a 13-year-old and a 12-year-old and has trouble getting out. Is there any sort of, support networks? Are there any events you run? So we get a lot of definitely around the single mums, just being so like looking after their kids and not having that time away. Definitely, obviously, with all the financial, the situation in the financial markets, cost of living and things. Definitely, there was a lot of requests around support with the basics. Being able to afford food for their children, or and the other one, I think there's a lot of focus as well on gender violence as well. I think as well with obviously a lot of things going on in the economy that adds a lot of stress to households as well. Not to give a reason for things, but I think there's a lot of quite stressed households, and there's a lot of ramifications behind that. And gender violence seems to be on the rise as well.
So what are you doing with women in Moonee Valley to, when you get those calls for help, what sort of things does the network do? What are you sort of trying? Is it more of a coordination effort? Is it connecting people with each other, or looking to run maybe a group where maybe more socially isolated can catch up at a time that's convenient for them in school hours, or, I'm not sure, like what sort of stuff are you doing? Yeah,
so at the moment, I think I'll probably be in more of a bit of a research phase. So one of the things I actually do on the side is I run social walking groups.
Okay.
Which are fantastic. So the idea around that is, again, just trying to reduce that social isolation in the community. So I find that getting people out into nature and getting them moving is really beneficial, and I see big results with that.
Yeah.
It's also connecting people with services.
Yeah.
So I just through running the page, I know about a lot of amazing local charities. You've got Carolyn Chisholm, you've got Helping Hands, Mission. Like you've got all these fantastic support networks. So sometimes it's giving people information and saying, hey, maybe you can try these people. Sometimes I do contact counsellors directly as well, because I've got good relationships. Sometimes I will get an inquiry and I'll forward it straight to someone like Samantha Byrne, Counsellor Samantha Byrne. Yeah. And she's really quick to get onto things. So sometimes I'm a bit of a conduit, or a bit of a like a help, just to help facilitate some of that information.
There's probably like a really big awareness piece to be done there too, where people may not even realise what sort of services are available to them, either through council or through some of the charities that you've mentioned there. Is that another part of what you're trying to do, like just try and help create that awareness for women who might need to connect with those services?
Yeah, definitely. And through the COVID lockdowns, there were times when we were actually taking food to people as well.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, so taking just some basics, some bread, milk and fruit, just to drop them. So that was happening as well. But obviously, like, again, just trying to direct people to those services to get as much support as they can ongoing.
Yeah.
Because you can do the odd drop-off, but
it's
not going to really be a long-term solution.
Correct. And I mean, you're running your own life too. You can't be, running
That's
around
right.
dropping everything off
That's
for others as well all the time. So a big part of, I guess, the platform that you're building, one of the things that you talk about is, I guess, highlighting the disadvantages that women face in our local community. Can you just perhaps elaborate on some of those inequalities that you've seen and how you're trying to use the network to close that gap?
Yeah, I think there's a fair bit of, again, there's the gender violence that occurs, and there's I guess what I see as a mum myself. There is sometimes not every household, but there can be a very disproportionate split of responsibilities, like when it comes to trying to run households, trying to work, So I do find I meet a lot of women that are just really overwhelmed.
Yeah.
There's just a massive overwhelm, trying to do it all, trying to manage the children, keep the marriage going, manage the finances, cost of living.
Yeah.
So I think there's just that level of, I guess, stress and overwhelm.
Yeah.
I feel, from my experience speaking to a lot of women, that it's quite can be disproportionate.
And it's hard too because, a lot of families now depend on either, if not 2 full-time incomes, at least 1 full-time and a part-time income just to keep the household ticking. And like you say, I guess what you're seeing is a lot of women are being asked to do, take up work and that sort of thing to keep the household ticking, but not necessarily relinquishing any of the
Other
household duties or children duties as well.
Yep.
So how are you, what's sort of the answer to that? Because I guess a lot of these are set in more cultural norms, right, where, mum looks after the kids and rightly or wrongly that's just how a lot of, people were brought up and that's what they sort of see or want to see happen in this generation as well. How do we sort of go about addressing that, do you think?
I think, again, tapping into trying to offer more support, especially during, say, school hours and things like that. Trying to, I guess, encourage like running events during those hours, for example. That's something that I'm looking to do.
Yeah.
I've started running, local walking groups during school hours, and you get mums come along, which is really nice.
Yeah.
Get dads too, but mostly mums saying, I'm this is for me, I'm doing something for me. So sometimes giving back to people, like people giving back to themselves, and it is a bit of a cliche, the whole self-love concept, but really, taking that time to give back to yourself and prioritise well-being is really important.
Yeah.
It's not an easy fix to try and solve all the financial constraints in society now, but
correct.
you can do smaller things for yourself, make yourself a cup of tea, sit outside for 5 minutes, go for a nice walk. So trying to prioritise that mental health and well-being side of things.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so the walks and stuff that you're running, how do people get involved in that? Like, is that just signing up through the website or how do people reach out and look into that?
Yeah, so currently the walks I do through another through a company called Social Walks.
Okay.
Yeah. But ideally, like I said, I want to eventually start running some daytime workshops, trying to encourage mums to come along and take time out for themselves and.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And talk to me a little bit about the business aspect of women in Moonee Valley, because there's obviously a lot of great businesses in the area that are run by women and employ women. Can you talk to me about some of the great stories or businesses that you've connected with through the network?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things we did a few years ago, we got a grant through Moonee Valley Council to set up our business directory. Yep. And so that's all women-led businesses, and a lot of them do employ like lots of other women in the area, which is lovely.
Yeah.
I guess every business is unique in their own way, and I found everyone that's been involved really excited about the concept of having a local directory as well. What about some of the exciting businesses? I mean, some of the more interesting ones, even I guess around the health and fitness. There's a nice little dance studio in Airport West.
Yeah.
Which encourages around it's around the self-confidence, building self-confidence. And,
yeah, right.
And a lot of I've been to some of their classes, and she's fantastic, Kika.
So you can jump on the directory and everything's sort of classified by different industries, or you look up a name and
you look up an industry and then it will give you some names.
Yeah, perfect. So what are the sort of plans for 2025? I know you had a bit of you had to restart the Instagram account, lost access to the original one. So I guess we're trying to build that profile back up. Do you want to just maybe plug that account and like, how people can get involved in the network?
Yeah. So I did have a pretty solid account with quite a nice, 4 years of history, and unfortunately I can't get access to it.
Yeah.
I've tried to get Instagram and Facebook to...
That's a nightmare, yeah.
It's just not happening. I've tried since October, so I sort of decided to start a fresh page. So it's going to take a while to build up again. But yeah, I guess word of mouth. The way I've grown so far is all organic. It's just all been word of mouth, just people sharing businesses. One of my favourite things to do is to feature local women.
Yeah.
So that's always been my favourite.
Yeah.
I've got a journalism background actually,
so
it's handy to use it in some capacity. But yeah, I just love discovering local women and saying, I'd love to feature you, and they get excited, I get excited, and then it just leads to a bit more exposure within the community. And what it means is that people recognise people and they start feeling like, again, you're walking past a shop and you see someone and you know who that person is and you say hello because you already feel like you've got that connection.
Yeah, for sure.
So I feel like it breaks down those barriers a bit and makes people more approachable.
Yeah,
And
100%.
Real people, it's not just a business trying to, obviously people are running businesses to make a living, but it's understanding the story behind it and the passion behind it, and then getting behind them because you know that you want to support that vision, I guess.
100%. I share that journalism background with you, which I don't think we knew before we started, but it's a big reason why I started this as well, because I just feel like if you can break down the barrier, get behind the branding and all that sort of stuff and actually get to know the people running these businesses in our community, it just increases that familiarity, and maybe you won't know everyone that comes into your store or whatever, but they'll feel like they have a deeper appreciation for you and I guess where you're coming from as well. So you mentioned, looking for some grants to maybe run some more events this year. Will they be more sort of networking style events or
definitely.
social events? Or
I don't want to give too much away because there's quite a big one that I want to get going, and I think it's a actually new concept that I've never seen done before, so I think it'll be really exciting.
Yep.
So that should be later this year.
Okay.
So...
Well, there's plenty of ways to skin a cat, so maybe there'll be some maybe sponsorship is another answer to this as well, right? So is that something you've looked at, or maybe reaching out to the directory and seeing if there's anyone who might sponsor an event like that? Yeah,
and look, when the time comes. I'm just I think I'm a big believer in it might sound a little bit cheesy, but energy exchange. So I think when you give out and you put out with good intention, that sign, it does reciprocate back eventually. I feel like it's a really nice, to me, the energy in the women in Moonee Valley, it's just really beautiful. Like, people will help each other. If I put a call out to action for something, I always get responses and get people wanting to help. Even if it's things like the charities that, looking for donations or things, I'll put a call out. When I had 3,000 followers, it was a lot more impactful, obviously, but we'll get back there. But I always do get that engagement back to say, yep, I want to help. Or if you're wanting, if someone's looking for work, sometimes they'll reach out to me and I'll post it in a story, and I'll get lots of responses back saying, this person's hiring, that person's hiring.
Yep.
So I find it's like a really quick, you can have a really quick impact.
And that's just purely through the social channels. That's not even touching the website. Yeah, I guess because you've built your following so organic and local. The people that need to see these things are seeing them, so you get that really really quick response.
You do. And I think people trust you. There's a level of trust that's built over time, because obviously it's been 4 years. People have seen a consistent, content that's been created. There's a similar vibe to it. Like I said, it's just always in a place of giving, I guess, in a place of sharing, in a place of just trying to build community. So, when I'm out and about, I run into people all the time that say, "Oh, you're Louisa, you look familiar. Yes, I know you." And I've even had people approach me that I have never met, and they'll hug me immediately and say, I just love what you do.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they're friends instantly.
Yeah.
There's no barrier. So I feel like it does break so many barriers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many businesses are actually listed on the directory at the moment?
Oh, that's a good question. I can't answer that
Yeah.
unless I check.
Yeah.
But when we first put it out for expressions of interest, I would say there's at least 30, if not more. And then there's also a page with resources for women. So I'd started building that, and I'll keep building that.
Yeah.
If you're needing food packages where you could go or things like that. So just keep building that direction.
Sure. And I guess with your business background and what you do for work, there's a lot of value you can potentially even give the businesses that are part of the network, right?
Yeah. So
I'm sure that's part of what you're looking to deliver through the network as well. If there's women watching this and they've got a business, how would they go about getting on the directory?
Okay, yeah. So they can just reach out through a message through the page.
Yep.
And then I've got a form that they fill out with all the information, and then that gets uploaded onto the website.
Perfect.
So,
easy.
Yep.
No,
yeah,
fantastic.
it's probably time to do a fresh drive anyway and refresh all the businesses and add some more. Yeah, definitely.
All right, and is it what's the sort of mix of the businesses you do have? Are they mainly health-based? What sort of businesses are you finding?
I would say, there's probably a lot of health wellbeing. I think Moonee Valley prides itself on being quite a healthy municipality. Like, I think there's a lot of, yoga and whether it's allied health or there's a lot. I found that's probably one of the main, and we love our coffee, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah, and the food.
So, there are a lot of women, like even the annual International Women's Day lunch that council does is always really well attended, and you see some big names that attend those as well. Have you been to any of those?
Those, yeah.
Yeah. What's your how do you think council's doing that in that regard in terms of just promoting women in business and women in general in the Moonee Valley?
Yeah. I think they're very supportive. I've actually been part of the Women's Leadership Program through council as well.
Cool.
Which is a great initiative. So they run that annually, and they have obviously a lot of support services. I know they do a lot of meal delivery. I mean, the thing is with council, you won't always know about a lot of these services unless you need them.
Yeah.
And they don't. I guess they're quite humble with what they share about some things, but they do support people in the community. And I often will direct people to council or to, again, these charities and say, reach out, and people may not. And I think that's probably something that could, especially in the current times, economic times, like maybe that's something that could be like a bit of a more campaigning. I've noticed things on socials recently actually around the meal prep that they do, and so I think more sharing of that, like especially with the current, the current issues that people are facing. I think a lot more focus on those sorts of things might be beneficial. Yeah. Doing some awareness, maybe even going to shopping centres and letting people know about the services, that sort of thing. But they do a great job. So.
Fantastic. If there were a couple of services, doesn't have to be council related, but any sort of services out there that you wish more people knew about that they don't, what would sort of be the top couple that you'd reference?
From my own experience, I guess where I am sitting, I think I went through a separation and divorce recently. So I find that there are services out there for women, but I find that many women struggle to work out where to go, who to go to, what steps to take. It gets very overwhelming. So more support services for families generally around if the household is experiencing, a breakdown, that there's definitely more support services, even potentially to keep the household together if it can, and if it can't, then to support that sort of separation better. I just, like I said, I found a lot of women just really confused about what needs to happen.
So where do they go? So where are you directing them in those instances?
A lot of the time be things like, depending on what's happened, if there's violence involved, there's Red Door and services like that. But again, there's no sort of checklist or process for people. Everyone's in a different situation.
So is there like, I don't know, a service or a hub that you go to that sort of understand, you can share a bit about what's happened and they'll direct you to the right place?
As far as I know, no.
No, okay.
There may be, but I'm not aware of it.
Yeah.
And all the women that I've, experienced this.
So it's sort of just been women supporting women and directing them to what they've used or what they've had good experiences with.
Yeah, there's a lot of word of mouth and I saw this and I saw that. But, to have some sort of, centre where it helps to manage that.
Sure.
Helps to manage, well-being for the parents, well-being for the children. I think something like that would be extraordinary to have.
Yeah.
Because it's a unfortunate fact of life and, you're looking at, 40, 50% of marriages end. So it's a massive statistic. So if you can support people through that, then I think that would be an amazing service to have.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll finish on something a little more lighthearted. So every episode I ask guests for some of their favourites from around the valley. We call it the Valley Faves. So did you have a favourite local cafe or
Yeah, this was a tricky one. I've got Perry's in Valley Lake.
Okay.
That's just a cool little venue. I don't know if you've been there.
That's relatively new, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been there for a little while now, but it's in the crater of the old quarry.
No,
so it's
I haven't
really
been
unique.
there yet, but I've heard good things. Yeah.
Really good food, really great coffee, and I can't go past. I used to work in a supermarket for 10 years, so I'm a massive supermarket fanatic. La Mana is just
how good.
You just there's so many hundreds and hundreds of cafes, but La Mana to me is like a bit of a treat. It's like a decadent little day out, and I just spend half the day there.
You really can spend half a day there without even thinking about it.
Absolutely, just browsing.
Sometimes we just catch up with friends there because you do, you walk and you shop and you have a coffee and all that sort of stuff.
It's a beautiful family-run business.
Yeah. Did you have a favourite place in Moonee Valley to sort of just relax and unwind, or with the walking that you do, is there a particular path or anything?
Yeah, definitely along that the Steel Creek Trail.
Yep.
And that takes you all the way down to Kilo and takes you all the way down to the Maribyrnong River.
Yep.
So I love just wandering along there.
Yep.
You've got the Lily Street lookout and you can see the whole city.
Yep.
So, yeah, that whole area is really, really beautiful. Underused and which is good.
It's always
not many people around.
Yeah. Is there a local woman who inspires you?
Yeah, I would say Aneta Paveski.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if
Yep.
So I recently did her money mastery course.
Oh, amazing.
Obviously going through separation, divorce.
Yeah.
Financial position changes quite significantly. So she took me through an 88-day program, which helped me to sort of uncover some of my,
And she has the, is it the bridal shop?
Bridal shop
in
as well.
East Keilor,
That's
right?
right. So she's a phenomenal businesswoman, and she's just a beautiful human, kind-hearted and generous and...
Yeah, she's visited the BNI chapter. I'm in a few times, and the energy is very.
She's amazing.
When she's in
Contagious.
the room, it's good. Yeah, no, it's very good. All right, fantastic. What would you, if you had one word to describe the women of Moonee Valley, what would you say?
I thought unstoppable.
Yeah,
yeah. From the time I've run this, the tenacity and the passion, especially going through economic tough times and things. I see some of the women and what they go through on a professional and a personal level, and I just think, wow, you guys are just unstoppable.
Yeah. No, fantastic. I normally ask for your favourite coffee in the Moonee Valley. I think we covered that in the cafe, but was there a particular cup of coffee that you really love or you look forward to?
Roasting Warehouse makes the best dirty chai.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It comes in like the little cup with the jug and the spices. Like it's really authentic.
It's a whole experience.
Yeah, it is. It's a whole experience. So definitely Roasting Warehouse for their dirty chai. Yep.
Fantastic. And was there a favourite restaurant?
Oh, wow.
Dinner spot?
So many. I do go to Chi Chi's a lot.
Okay.
So it's a Vietnamese restaurant on Keilor Road.
Yep.
Again, one of those little undiscovered places
that
when you ask,
I probably had Uber Eats from there. Maybe it sounds familiar. But
it's delicious. Yeah, every time, reliable, consistent, lovely people. Again, just it's good for a night out.
Fantastic. So before we wrap up, can you just maybe plug the Instagram account? What's the handle, and again maybe even the website, so that if anyone wants to support any of the women in Moonee Valley running businesses that you've highlighted, where can they go?
Yep. So the handle is Women in MV for Instagram, and then Women in Moonee Valley on Facebook.
Yep.
And then the business directory is womeninmoonevalley.org.au.
Perfect.
So
Well, fantastic. Well, Louisa, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great to learn a bit more about your story and the network.
thank you.
No
Thanks for having
worries.
me.
All right. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Moonee Valley Voices podcast. Stay tuned for next week where we'll have another episode for you. Thanks.